Stop for a second. Not your thoughts, not your breath, just your habit of rushing through life. Because right now, something much deeper than your mind is trying to get your attention. As you read these words, feel that subtle recognition inside you. That quiet pulse that says, "I already know this." That isn't your brain processing new information. It's your consciousness remembering what it's always known, but forgot how to express. You've been trained your whole life to watch life instead of live it. To be an observer. You scroll, you react, you respond. You watch the news, notice trends, analyze what others are doing. You've been taught to monitor your bank account, your relationships, your body, your emotions, and judge them. Feel relief when they look good, anxiety when they don't. You've learned to observe reality as something that happens to you. But here's the truth, no psychology class or self-help book ever really tells you pure observation without creation keeps you stuck. Every time you simply observe something without intentionally generating something new, you're silently telling the universe, "Yes, keep giving me this." This isn't mysticism, it's physics. Consciousness and reality are connected more deeply than most people realize. When you look at your life from a detached point of view, you're unconsciously selecting that same version of reality again and again from an infinite field of possibilities. Think about your mornings. You wake up, grab your phone, check your messages, notice how you feel, replay yesterday's issues, plan for today's stress. In those first few seconds, you're not creating. You're just reloading yesterday's program. You're agreeing, without realizing it, to continue the same story one more day. That's why change feels impossible. You're trying to observe your way into a new life, as if watching the same movie harder will somehow change its plot. Observation alone can't change anything, it only repeats it. Most people become experts at observation. They master the art of noticing what's wrong, identifying patterns, explaining trauma, analyzing their behavior. They can describe exactly why they feel stuck. But that endless awareness doesn't free them, it traps them even tighter. Because every explanation reinforces the same frequency of limitation they're trying to escape. Quantum physics gives us a glimpse into why this happens. You've probably heard of the observer effect. People think observation creates reality, but that's not quite true. Particles exist in what's called superposition, infinite possibilities at once. Observation collapses that field into a single outcome. But here's the part most people miss. The quality of observation determines which reality becomes real. Dr. Dean Radin at the Institute of Noetic Sciences proved this. When people merely watched random systems, nothing changed. But when they watched with focused intention, the data shifted in measurable ways. Intention, not passive awareness, was the creative force. Your life works the same way. Every second, you exist in a field of infinite potential. You could become any version of yourself, but most people choose the same version over and over. Because their attention is locked in habit, not creation. Neuroscience agrees. Your brain can't tell the difference between a real experience and a vividly imagined one. Harvard studies showed that people who only imagined practicing piano grew the same neural connections as those who physically practiced. The brain doesn't care whether something happened out there or in here. It just builds whatever you focus on. So every time you focus on what's missing, your brain wires limitation deeper. Every time you focus on what's possible, it opens a new neural doorway to that future. You're already creating your life either way. The question is, are you doing it on purpose or by default? 3 years ago, I discovered this in the hardest way imaginable. My life was a cycle on repeat. Same disappointments, same financial stress, same emotional patterns. I kept analyzing everything, my past, my beliefs, my trauma. I was the world's most self-aware observer, and it kept me stuck. Then one day, after yet another rejection email, something inside me went silent. Not in defeat, but in stillness. It felt like a switch had turned off. A mechanism that had been running my entire life suddenly stopped. And for the first time, I saw it. I wasn't living life. I was watching it. I was the audience, not the author. I was showing up to the same movie every day, complaining about the story, but never realizing I could walk out and write my own script. That moment changed everything. I asked myself, what if I stopped observing what is and started creating what could be? Not affirmations, not vision boards, something deeper. What if life wasn't happening to me, but through me? I stopped checking whether things were improving. I stopped tracking results, stopped watching for progress. Instead, I began to create, not by pushing or forcing, but by holding the frequency of what I wanted to experience, regardless of what reality showed me. I became the person who already had it, not the person trying to get it. And then reality started shifting. Opportunities appeared from nowhere. A friend I hadn't spoken to in years called with an offer that matched my intention perfectly. Health issues began to fade without explanation. Creativity returned like a flood. But the biggest shift wasn't external, it was internal. The observer sees what's already here. The creator feels what wants to be born. The observer asks, what is real? The creator asks, what wants to become real through me? It's a subtle difference, but it changes everything. When you stop relating to reality as something separate and start seeing it as something that moves through your consciousness, life begins to reorganize itself around you. That's when you finally understand. You were never just watching life, you were writing it all along. Once that realization landed, everything around me started to look different. I could see how every thought, every emotion, every reaction had been quietly shaping my world. The moment I stopped obsessively observing my circumstances and started creating from frequency, reality began to respond in ways that felt almost impossible to explain. The truth is, most people aren't living. They're monitoring life like a security camera, always watching, always analyzing, never creating. They check their relationships and decide how to feel. They check their bank account and decide who they are. They check their body and decide how much they're worth. Every single decision is a reaction to observation. But creation works the other way around. It starts from within. When you operate as a creator, you don't wait for your world to give you permission to feel abundant, loved, or fulfilled. You generate that feeling first, and then reality mirrors it back. Think about money. When you look at your bank account and feel that familiar tension, I don't have enough, you're feeding the frequency of lack. Your actions, thoughts, and emotions all orbit that belief. So you keep experiencing not enough. A creator sees the same number but asks, what wants to be created here? They don't deny the number or pretend it's bigger. They simply refuse to identify with it. They tune into abundance not as a distant dream, but as a natural state that wants to express through them. And then, from that place, they act. They make the call. They take the chance. They follow inspiration, not desperation. That subtle shift in energy changes everything. Because when your inner state stops depending on outer conditions, your outer world begins to rearrange itself to match your new frequency. The same principle applies to health. Observers check symptoms and react with fear. Creators embody wellness even before the evidence appears. They don't fake positivity. They live from the vibration of vitality. And the body, being the most intelligent instrument of consciousness, begins to reorganize itself around that signal. This isn't denial, it's higher participation. You're not pretending problems don't exist, you're refusing to worship them. And something beautiful happens when you live this way. Emotional balance returns. Observers ride constant waves of reaction, up when things go right, down when they don't. Creators, on the other hand, move from inner stability. Their peace isn't negotiable, their energy doesn't collapse when circumstances shift. They can face uncertainty and still feel grounded, because their power isn't tied to what they see. It's anchored in what they generate. The deeper you go into this understanding, the more you realize something extraordinary. The line between observer and creator starts to dissolve completely. You begin to sense that consciousness doesn't just look at reality or shape it. Consciousness is reality. You're not a separate being trying to create your life. You are life expressing itself through a temporary form called you. That's not philosophy, it's remembrance. You're not becoming something new. You're remembering what you've always been. And once you remember, you can't go back. You can't unsee this truth. You can't fully return to the small self that thought life was happening to it. Because now you know, Every experience, every circumstance, every random event has been your own consciousness speaking to itself in the language of reality. This is the shift happening across the planet right now. Millions of people are awakening from the illusion of passive observation. They're realizing that they are not the audience of life, they're the scriptwriters. The collective mind is evolving, and every person who embodies this awareness makes it easier for others to awaken too. That's how reality evolves. Consciousness remembers itself, one human at a time. So right now, as you finish these words, take a breath and feel this recognition move through you. You're not the watcher of your life, you're the life that's watching. In the comments below, write 3 words that carry this truth. I am creating. Not someday, not later. Now, because you're not waiting for permission anymore. You're not seeking proof. You're remembering what was true all along. You've never been the observer, you've always been the creator.